welcome. She is a summer student with us for this year. Again, welcome, Taylor. I should like to call this meeting to order at, well, the clock says 12:59 and the computer says 1, so we'll go with 1 o'clock. We are present here with our municipal clerk and other staff members, and we do have full quorum in that all of our council members are here. Our next item on our agenda is the Township of Hamilton, our land acknowledgement statement. The Township of Hamilton is situated within the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. Our work on these lands respectfully acknowledges their resilience and their long-lasting contributions to the area now known as the Township of Hamilton. Item 3. Do you have any declaration of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, that will be recorded. Confirmation of the agenda. It has been circulated. And could I have a mover, please, to confirm the agenda? Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next item of business is our delegations and presentations. And we welcome Brad Bedard, if I'm saying that correctly, to our podium, please. And we'll just ensure that microphone's on, and then the floor will be yours. And Brad's presentation is regarding the barricades at Pengelly Point. I assume each and every one of us know where Pengelly Point is. So, Brad, when you're set up, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great. Thanks. So thank you guys for having me in today. The reason for me to want to come and address council today was just to discuss the barriers that were installed. I'm going to say just over a year ago, maybe about 16 months ago, down on Hannah Road in this area. So there's a public access point, and we've been having a bit of an issue accessing the water there. I mean, I've lived there 12 years. There's other people on our street that have been 30, 40 years that have accessed the water through that way, whether it's for kayaking, canoeing, fishing with their children. And recently there's been obstructions to that point not allowing us through. Originally it was by a new landowner next to the point that I think is getting frustrated with people fishing in that area. Not particularly us locals, but other people that might be coming from a bit of a distance, standing on the edge of that point. We originally started to see tree debris and tree branches lying through the point to block our access. That was moved when I think a few neighbors complained. And that sort of stuff continued for a little while. And then, like I said, about 14 months ago, the township installed a very large concrete barrier to block the entire access to that point. I had made a few phone calls and a few emails going back and forth with Lucas Kelly. And since the 2 smaller barriers have been put in place and there's a little bit of access around it, but I just had a few questions for the township on one, why were the barriers installed? Who were they meant to block? 2, there were some signs put up as well on the Hannah Road as well as deeper onto the point. Some of it is no campfires, no alcohol, which all that stuff I understand. But one of them was no motorized vehicles. So that would allow me to believe that there's no snowmobile access anymore to the lake. There's no ATVs to get out on the lake to go ice fishing and so on. So part of me addressing council today is just to get a bit of answers on why they were installed, who they're meant to block out of there, and just get a better understanding on the township decision.
Thank you, Brad. Do you have anything further? And if not, I'll sort of fill you in the best that I can. First of all, this is committee of the whole. We as council members may have some answers, and we will quite openly admit we don't necessarily have all the answers. Okay. We'll depend on staff for that. Our process is to have you here as a delegation ask the questions. historically, we send that on to staff to get the answers and generally ask for a solution for staff to bring back to us as well. One of the points that I believe I do know the answer to, Brad, is why were the barricades put up in the first place? And I want to engage with Council Member Lovshin. And the reason for that is that he and I sit on the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee together. And if I remember correctly, Mark, we were getting complaints regarding weekend parties, the alcohol, and hence probably that sign, and the vehicle misuse of the area down to the water. I'm going to give you that as my best memory from probably a year and a half or more ago. And what you see was the solution to that. At the same time, I don't want to spend a lot more of your time on this because going by my memory rather than staff's notes and records would be somewhat inappropriate. So I'll say I'll answer that the best I can at this point in time and,
Okay.
and leave it. Do we as committee members, sorry, as council members, do we have any questions for Brad, Larry? Mark?
I read your letter, Brad, and your concerns. I was just wondering, what solution did you have there? Is it just to simply take all the barricade out and let it be the way it used to be? Because at that time, as Scott's mentioned, we were getting complaints, and we got complaints from the neighbors, and not just the neighbor right beside, but other neighbors, because there was issue there with everything from alcoholism to people going down there that shouldn't be down there, kind of thing. So
Yep.
there was issues there.
So, I mean, I can't speak for the other neighbors. I think some of that may have been embellished a little bit. So, you know, speaking with the homeowner next to it, and I know there was other homeowners as well you mentioned, but you know, some of the stories that he brought up was, you know, this has been a squatting spot for drug and homeless people. He said, you know, we have them here. I thought he's been here for six or 8 months. For 12 years, we've never seen any drug use or misuse of that. So maybe there's some, I've seen campfires down there before, people fishing. It certainly hasn't stopped any of that. I recently took a few photos last time. I was probably about 3 weeks ago driving down that point, and there was probably 20 vehicles wrapped around that 90-degree bend. So the challenge we have now is now that there's no parking on that bend, which I understand that homeowner pulls in about halfway down the point in his driveway. It seems like an interesting spot for a driveway because the challenge now is people don't avoid going to that point. They just park on the road. And when I'm driving down that road and I'm coming into a 90-degree corner, I have no choice but to go on the opposite side of the road to make that bend. So in some cases, I feel that the solution has really done nothing but make it a bit of an obstruction for people to get through. They're still going fishing there. It's just made it more of a challenge for any local people who want to maybe pull a nice hut out on the ice that way. But it certainly hasn't stopped anyone from using it. My wife and I were actually there on Mother's Day with our kids fishing down at that point, and there was a bunch of rocks put in place for a fire pit and a bunch of logs. So we disassembled that and put the rocks back on the point. So it definitely hasn't stopped any of the issues that may have been happening. But in the 12 years living there, short of somebody having a late night fire while they fish, I've never really seen some major parties or gatherings there. It's
There was issue because we had policing there and so forth. And
okay.
that's why some of the signage actually started, because the police actually asked for that, because in order for them to lay charges, they need something to grasp with. So
Right.
that's why the signage was put there.
Okay.
So, but
So could I ask if the signage saying no motorized vehicles, if I'm parked with an ATV or truck, because the last discussion I've had, the last response I got back was that the barricades have been moved to the side. And from the understanding is that a vehicle can still get around because there's tire tracks. That would lead me to believe that I'm allowed to park my vehicle down there to fish, or an ATV or a snowmobile. If they're saying it's
Again, Brad, I think we better spend some time and investigate this, or
okay.
we'll be heading you in the wrong direction and heading ourselves in the wrong direction as well.
Right.
Brad, you mentioned you have some photographs. You live in the area. We don't, to be quite honest with you. Is there any photographs that you would be willing to share with us, whether they're present photographs or what you might see tomorrow on your way home sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I
Just
have
help us
some
build
on my
that
phone. Yeah.
information component here so we can hopefully get a good solution,
For sure.
moving forward.
For sure. I've sent several as well to Lucas Kelly. I'm not sure if he's here today.
No, he's not.
But I've sent several of these photographs and emails, and that was part of my reason to come today. Is it's been over a year and a half, and some of the answers seem very light. I feel we sort of been brushed aside. There's somewhat been a bit of a change in the way that our lifestyle changed on our street, and I feel the decision was made fairly quickly by the township. And any discussion or any argument to that has just dragged on, like I said, over a year and a half, and it continues just to sort of feel a little bit brushed off and not addressed accordingly. So that's why I thought it
Well,
should.
we'll make every effort to deal with it as promptly as we can, Brad.
Excellent.
Thank you for your, oh, sorry, Larry.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Is the park designated as a public park? Or is it, what is the designation for that area? I mean, who,
So
do we, I'm going to staff, do we maintain it? Do we cut the grass? Do we, is it designated as a public park?
Through you, Mayor Jib, it is a right of way or a right of way to water. It's not a park designated as such, but it's township owned, and we don't maintain it as such with grass cutting or otherwise. It's been left in its rather natural state with the exception of the path area down to the water. But obviously, as a report back by staff, we can clarify or update that information if there's any further details required.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe we can get a general overview of our history there as well. And I'm sure we'll be asking staff to bring that forward to us. Again, Brad, I'll come back to you and say thank you for your presentation, and we will be getting back to you. I will caution you, things seem to take always longer than any of us want, so
Right.
be patient.
Of course. Yeah.
And thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
And do we have a online presentation at this point in time? Excellent. Yeah, we're gonna. Sorry, we have several people with us, and we'll just take a moment to transition to our next presentation. And I'll simply introduce Laura Donaldson in a moment here.
Thank you, Mayor Jib, through you. Laura, if you're able to, if you'd kindly turn on your camera. Yeah, thank you. Laura, if you're able to, if you would kindly turn on your camera.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm just trying to navigate your system here.
Laura, so are we.
It looks like I have the audio working. I'm just trying to figure out how to share my presentation or turn on my video.
Laura, we can see you now and we can
Oh.
hear you, but we're having trouble here at this end, so just bear with us for a moment. We're having trouble here at this end, so just bear with us for a moment. Good afternoon, Laura. Let's do a little test and see if we have any feedback, which we've been experiencing.
Okay.
Seems to be fine, Laura.
Oh, wonderful.
Laura is the Vice President of Transportation Structures, Egress Group, and she's here to speak to us on the recommended plan for County Road 28 interchange and Hamilton Road Bridge. And I'm just not familiar with what that is, so I look forward to your presentation.
Okay, great. Is everyone able to see the screen I'm sharing?
Yes, and we
Okay.
can hear you loud and clear, so the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come forward today. So I'm the project manager on the consultant side. Also here on the call is my colleague Jeff King, who's our environmental lead, environmental planner, and we have two folks from the Ministry of Transportation, Lauren and Chris, who represent the MTO on this project. So the purpose of meeting with you today is to just bring you up to speed on this project. This is the preliminary design that looked at the interchange at County Road 28, which is Ontario Street in Port Hope, and then the bridge that's just east of there, which is Hamilton Road. Okay, so there's a lot of words on this slide, but basically what it says is that we started this project quite a few years ago to understand the needs of the corridor in and around the Port Hope area. Predominantly, it was one big project, then it got broken into two projects. The first project looked at the structural needs of three bridges, which is the Cranberry Road Bridge. These are the ones that are in blue on the map. Cranberry Road, the Ganaraska River Bridge, and the Choate Road Bridge along Highway 401. It also looked at the future footprint for Highway 401 in that area. We finished that project up in 2022, and it has moved on to the detailed design phase. The Choate Road and Ganaraska bridges will be replaced in the near future. But that's not what we're here to talk to you about today. We're talking to you about the second piece, which is study 2, which looked at the long-term needs of, like I said, the interchange and the bridge at Hamilton Road. So this was a Group B project within the provincial world, and we will be producing a transportation and environmental report at the finish of this project. In terms of where we are, we're actually nearing the end at this point. So we in the past few years, we looked at basically the needs, developed a number of alternatives. We've evaluated those alternatives. Just last month, we went in front of the Municipal Advisory Committee, which had a representative from your township, Port Hope, Northumberland County, all the emergency services, a number of the agencies to present our recommended plan. So at this point, we're just meeting with any of the interested municipal councils, and then we'll be moving on to finalizing our recommended plan and preparing the Transportation Environmental Study Report, which will complete the environmental assessment. Sorry, blip here, hit the wrong button. Okay. Back. Sorry, folks. Okay. So in terms of consultation, this is just a list of the Indigenous communities that have been consulted, in addition to external agencies. So you can see the Ministry of Environment, MNR, who else is all the emergency services. We've had a lot of consultation with the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority, and like I say, the municipalities. So this just gives you a timeline of where we've come from and where we're going. So we had our first public information center back in the fall of 2022. At that public information center, we basically presented our short list of alternatives. In April, I just mentioned we met with the representatives from the the municipalities. And what the goal after meeting with you folks is to go to our public information center this summer and wrap up the project in the fall. There's been a number of environmental studies that have been completed. Those are for the natural environment. We also looked at noise, cultural heritage, archaeology, and contamination. So those have all been completed. This just talks about the existing environmental conditions at the Canada Road 28 location. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. We have some built heritage resources from historical farming on the north-hand side. We have some archaeological resources also on the north side. The land use on the south, as we move down to Port Hope, is predominantly commercial, adjacent to the 401. And then we have some residential lands as well on the west side of Ontario Street. In terms of the natural environment, there's the Kanerasca River, of course, and a tributary to that in the northwest quadrant, which does not contain fish habitat. The other side is Hamilton Road, which is not too far away from Ontario Street. Very similar environmental conditions. I guess the noteworthy thing here is we have the Loria car dealerships in that southwest quadrant. And then it's basically agricultural in the other three quadrants. So this time I'll just talk about the recommended plan. This slide just talks about the various interchange configurations, their pros and cons. So the takeaway here is that a Parklow A has free flow ramps, which are superior for traffic movement, and the other option is a type B. So back at the first Public Information Center, we identified we had shortlisted 4 options. 2 of those options looked at moving the interchange to Hamilton Road. One kept it at Ontario Street, and there was an option that was kind of in between, halfway between Hamilton Road and Ontario. Based on our technical evaluation, the recommended plan is to keep the interchange at Ontario Street, but we would be looking at changing the configuration. So what you can see here in the pink line work is the new 401 ramps. So on the south side, it would stay in the same quadrant, but we would be realigning to have a Parklow B style. Right now, the existing ramps connect into Rose Glen Road. I'll use my cursor here, Rose Glen Road here. So we would be modifying that so they would connect directly to Ontario Street. And once again, this is the long-term plan. This is not the tomorrow plan. This is to a planning exercise. So everyone knows kind of what the plan is down the road. In order to do this on the south-hand side, we would have to cul-de-sac Phillips Road. That's a little minor road. So Rose Glen comes around here with this light blue line. And then it would connect, it currently connects directly into Ontario Street at this intersection with Molson. That would be modified and Phillips Road would be cul-de-sac because it has a negative impact due to its close proximity on the traffic operations at the new south ramp terminal. This option allows the Port Hope traffic to continue to use Ontario Street to access the downtown. It has the least number of property impacts. It has no impact on the emergency response times, and it has the lowest construction cost. The disadvantages to this option is that it has the Parklow B on the south side, which means that traffic coming from the north trying to head eastbound has to make the left-hand turn onto the ramp. And the other downside is that the McDonald's, which is over here on the south-hand side, will no longer have direct access to the interchange. Folks will have to wayfind from Rose Glen Road down here, either to the north or most likely to the south, to use Rosevere Road, which is down here a little further south in Port Hope. There's also a zoom inset image here, so you can kind of see the cul-de-sac that's being proposed. There's a lot on this slide. I'm not going to speak to it all, but basically this is the process that we went through to come up with our recommended plan, looking at pros and cons of the various options, which, like I said a second ago, ultimately landed on keeping the interchange at Ontario Street. In terms of how this would be built and staged, in order to replace the bridge would get longer to accommodate the ramps and the future lanes of 401 at Ontario Street or County Road 28, which is also known as. In order to do some of the construction, we would have to have some ramp impacts because some of the ramps are overlapping with where their new footprint and their old footprint are overlapping. So there'll be some impacts there, not long-term, short-term impacts. Traffic on Ontario Street would be reduced to a single lane in each direction during the bridge replacement. And then just like many of the other bridge replacements on 401, there would be isolated times when we're either doing demolition of major structural components or erection of girders that there would be a full closure of 401. In those cases, the common practice is to use the emergency detour route to send traffic for short periods during off-peak times. So this is what the new bridge would look like at County Road 28 when it is deemed warranted. So there would be 2 left-hand turn lanes, like I said, to access the eastbound on-ramp, and there would be a new 2-span bridge to replace the existing 3-span bridge. The Hamilton Road plan is similar in that we would be moving from a 3-span bridge to a 2-span bridge to allow a larger width on 401 for future traffic needs. Difference is Hamilton Road is obviously less traveled. We're proposing a single lane per direction, which is what is currently there. At Hamilton Road, we basically looked at the short list was 2 options. They were both keeping the bridge at the same location. The only differentiating factor was one was a staged replacement and the other one was a full closure during the bridge replacement. We ultimately landed on the full closure, predominantly because it allows for shorter construction duration, and we do have obviously quite a nearby road network that local traffic can use during that year of construction. So speaking of the Hamilton Road construction, this is just a slide that talks about the impact. So like I say, Hamilton Road would be closed for that year. Local traffic would use the highlighted route there, essentially using Telephone Road and Ontario Street to get around. There would be some short-term impacts at Telephone Road, this is the intersection of Telephone Road and Hamilton on the north-hand side. We're thinking around a 1-week closure because basically due to the proximity of the bridge, the new bridge will be longer, which means it's going up as well. And we have to tie in the grading there. And similar to Ontario Street, certain erection and demolition activities may require the full closure of 401 during nights. So just trying to wrap things up for you guys here. The schedule is that, like I said, we're going to be looking to go to the second and last PIC, Public Information Center, for this project later this summer. In terms of the construction timing, and like I said, this is a long-term planning. We understand that Northumberland County, which is one of the reasons we're looking at this, has the plans to possibly develop the north side of 401 with their development. They're looking at it possibly a 15-year time frame for that. That's around the same time that the bridges would require replacement. The timing for expansion of Highway 401 to an 8-lane configuration is around 30 years, at which point the interchange reconstruction would be required. Let me just see if I have anything else here. Just contact information. The main thing, going back to that previous slide, is that the need to upgrade the interchange is dependent on if and when and how fast Northumberland County would develop if they choose to develop that area north of 401. So this study is really about putting a plan in place ahead of time. So I think that is my last slide. And I would open the floor to any comments or questions.
We have any questions for Laura? I'll go around the room. John, Larry, Bruce, Mark, we're down to me, Laura, it's Scott here. When you say or reference Northumberland County's proposal of development in that area, what are you really saying?
Okay, so can you still see my screen?
Yes,
Is in the process of a secondary plan, which is looking at developing north of Telephone Road here, a large parcel of land for manufacturing. Oh, I guess I should say manufacturing, like distribution. They have a study that they are currently wrapping up that looks at trying to accommodate the future growth of Port Hope by allowing development of those agricultural lands in that area. And I guess what I'm saying is that depending on if and when that happens, that's going to introduce a lot more traffic to the current interchange at Canada 28 Ontario Street, which would accelerate the need to replace that because it would become functionally like it wouldn't function anymore from a traffic perspective.
thank you. You had me concerned a little bit that there was something at the county level for properties within Hamilton Township, and I maybe misinterpreted what that might have meant, but you've helped me understand there better.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the other thing, Laura, is the construction of alternative one with the maintaining the Ontario Street off ramps, on and off ramps, would impact Hamilton Township in what way as it relates to Telephone Road in Hamilton Township?
Minimally. So you guys are on the obviously the east side here, so I would say nothing significant.
So all work can be done within the present 401 corridor in respect to the ramps, only.
With respect to the ramps, the only property taking that's required is on this north side by the Ganaraska River. And if you can see my cursor, we have to take a little bit of property from the Ganaraska Region Conservation Area, but that's the extent of the property taking identified at this time.
Thank you. Again, that's in an adjoining municipality.
Yes.
One concern I'm left with, though, and I know it's quite a number of years away, but as we use that alternative detour route, Burnham to Dale, which is 18 to 74 and back to the west, that's going through the heart of Hamilton Township, I guess I could say, and that will be a major impact for us in relationship to our local traffic flows and our emergency services. Did I hear you say that could be an alternative detour route for a year?
No.
Night
Sorry.
closures? What did I hear that?
Like just one night.
One night.
Yes. So a lot of the girder erection is done using rolling closures, which means the police kind of create a barricade, and it allows like 15 minutes for the 401 to be closed locally for them to put girders into place. It's not for the duration. The 401 remains open for the vast majority of the time during the construction. It's like I say, just if we have to do a rapid demolition of the existing bridge and drop it for a night. I'm talking like 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning type of thing. For a night or two is the way we typically look at those. So definitely not using that emergency detour route to take 401 on a regular basis.
I'm glad to hear that as well from you, Laura. Do we have any follow-up questions for Laura? Laura, thank you. And to the rest that have been with you that haven't spoken, we appreciate your sharing of this information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda. We do not have a closed session, obviously. Item 7 is our motion to adjourn. And it's prepared motion to committee of the whole meeting held on May 14th, 2024 be adjourned at 1:34. Should we have had a motion to receive the delegations to our clerk, or am I wrong in my thoughts?
You're welcome to receive. We have taken notes and staff is taking direction.
I'll-
And we'll provide the information for the second date of the PIC.
I'll simply leave it as a motion on the floor to adjourn at 1:35 PM. Could I have a mover, please? Mark. Seconded by John. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.